The pileup incident. In the freezing winter of 2015, on Interstate 94 in Michigan, drivers woke up to what seemed like a normal morning. The road looked fine, but what they didn't see was a thin layer of black ice. One car slid out of control, then another, and in seconds, the highway turned into pure chaos. Cars slammed into each other left and right, trucks jackknifed, smaller cars were smashed in between. By the time it was all over, almost 200 vehicles were piled up like toy cars thrown across the floor. People were trapped inside their cars, smoke filling the air, and then things got even worse. A semi carrying fireworks caught fire, and when fireworks start going off in the middle of a giant car accident, let's just say it doesn't look like New Year's Eve. Somehow, only one person died that day, but dozens were seriously hurt, and everyone stuck there saw things they'd never forget. The wreck looked less like a crash and more like a battlefield. Black ice doesn't care how good of a driver you think you are, it'll humble you fast. The river incident. This next situation falls on a stormy night in 2019 in Kerala, India. Heavy rain had been pounding the city all day, flooding the streets and making the roads slick. A family of four was driving across a narrow bridge when the driver lost control. The car skidded, hit the guardrail, and then slipped straight off the side into the rushing river below. Locals saw it happen and rushed over, some even diving in to try and help. But the current was too strong, and within seconds, the car was swept downstream. The family inside was trapped, fighting to get out, banging on the windows. By the time rescuers finally pulled the car out, it was too late. Three of them had drowned, still strapped into their seats. And the thing is, experts later said that if the driver had just stayed calm and not fought the wheel so hard, the car might have only grazed the barrier and stayed on the bridge. But understandably, staying calm when your car is sliding off a bridge is like staying calm when your phone slips out of your pocket toward the toilet. It's just not happening. The highway incident. Back in 2003, just outside Toronto, two cars were street racing late at night. They weren't just going fast, they were flying. Witnesses later said that the cars were pushing around 140 miles per hour down a stretch of highway that usually tops out at 60. At that speed, even the smallest mistake becomes a death sentence. One of the drivers lost control, and in an instant, the fun ended. The car slammed straight into a concrete pillar at full speed. The impact was so violent that the vehicle split clean in half like it had been sliced open by a giant blade. Pieces of metal rained down across the highway, sliding into other lanes while smoke and sparks lit up the night. What was left of the driver wasn't much better. The force of the collision shredded the body apart, scattering remains across the asphalt. First responders arriving on scene later compared it to a nightmare scavenger hunt, searching for pieces of human being among twisted steel and broken glass. Some bystanders even said it looked more like the aftermath of an explosion than a car crash. And believe it or not, the other racer actually tried to keep driving, as if no one would notice a car had just exploded behind him. But they noticed. Police caught up with him not long after, and instead of a finish line, his race ended in handcuffs. It's one thing to think that you're living life in the fast lane, it's another to actually split your car and yourself into two separate pieces. The fireball incident. If you've ever bragged about hitting 100 miles per hour on the freeway, congratulations. You're still about 50 miles per hour slower than the guy in this story. In 2020, in Las Vegas, a drunk driver floored his Corvette at 156 miles per hour down a city street. At that speed, you're basically piloting a missile on wheels. Unfortunately, that missile found its target. He slammed straight into the back of a Toyota that just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The impact was instant and catastrophic. The Toyota erupted into flames on impact, trapping the driver inside. People nearby tried to rush over, but the fire was spreading too quickly, turning the car into a rolling fireball. By the time firefighters got it under control, there wasn't much left of the car or the person inside. It wasn't just a fatal accident, it was a slow-motion nightmare. Witnesses later described the scene as one of the most horrific things they'd ever watched. The drunk driver survived the crash and was arrested, which almost feels unfair because he walked away, while an innocent person was burned alive because someone thought one more drink wouldn't matter. But here's the lesson. If you want to play race car driver, do it on a track. Otherwise, you're not the main character, you're just the villain in someone else's story. The Decapitation Incident. Moscow, 2018. A group of friends were driving late at night, weaving in and out of traffic like they were auditioning for Fast and Furious, Russia Drift. But things went wrong when their BMW hit a slick patch of road. The car swerved out of control, plowed through a guardrail, and smashed headfirst into a roadside signpost. The driver's side took the brunt of the impact, and so did the driver himself. The collision was so brutal that the force instantly decapitated him. Fun fact, or maybe not, when someone's decapitated, the brain can actually stay conscious for up to 20 seconds, which means for that poor guy, those last moments were probably the most brutally confusing and terrifying seconds anyone could ever experience. The rest of the passengers sat in shock, realizing their friend was still technically sitting upright, but his head was gone. The aftermath was so graphic that police arriving at the scene had to cover the car just to block gawkers from snapping photos. The thing is, he wasn't even wearing a seatbelt. It's almost like he looked at a BMW going 100 kilometers per hour and thought, nah, my neck's got this. But it didn't. The surviving passengers weren't physically harmed, but trauma like that doesn't just vanish. Imagine walking away from a crash only to realize you left part of your best friend behind, literally. This wasn't some freak accident in the middle of nowhere either. It happened right in the city, under bright streetlights, where everyone passing by got a front row seat to a horror show. This is where tragedy turns into something grotesque, something that sticks in your brain long after the flames and wreckage are cleared. The shovel incident. Rush hour in Shenzhen, 2015, a family sedan sat at an intersection, just another car in a sea of traffic. Then, out of nowhere, a fully loaded cement truck lost balance and tipped sideways. The impact was instant as the truck rolled directly onto the car, flattening it in a single merciless crunch. Witnesses said it didn't even look like a crash. It looked like someone dropped a giant boot on a soda can. One moment, a family was waiting at a red light. The next, their car was a sheet of metal barely 5 inches thick. And here's where it gets worse. Rescuers rushed in, trying to peel back the wreckage, but there was nothing to rescue. The people inside weren't just crushed, they were pulverized. The force of the cement truck had blended metal, glass, and body into something unrecognizable. Firefighters couldn't even remove the victims like normal. They had to use shovels, not stretchers, not body bags, but shovels, in scraping the remains off the pavement as they were cleaning up after a spill. That's the level of dehumanization this crash left behind. A whole family reduced to something indistinguishable from the debris they were trapped in. And if you think seatbelts or airbags could have made a difference here, forget it. This wasn't survival of the fittest. This was survival of the luckiest. And unfortunately, that family had none. Why you'd sit through 6 of the most disturbing car crash deaths ever is beyond me, but hey, you made it. That's all I've got for now. Go enjoy the rest of your day.